My name's Vinny. Odds are if you're clicking on this video, you'd like to know how to mod or create your own custom skin files, and you have no clue where to start, you don't have any models yet, and you're not sure how the process looks like. That's perfectly fine. Just like 2 weeks ago, I was in your shoes. I had never opened Blender before. I didn't know what any of these words meant. GLTF, Ninja Ripper, Cheat Engine, BlueStacks, and none of that. But my goal is by the end of this video to teach you how to go from having no model to having a fully fledged working model inside of League. I will be putting links for all the software that you need to have downloaded in the bottom of this video, as well as links for tutorials on how to properly install them. If you guys really want, I can make a full in-depth tutorial on how to install these softwares later down the line, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to start as if we have all of the softwares installed and ready to go. In order to keep these videos very short and go into depth into each particular subject or topic, I'm going to be splitting it up into 3 separate videos. The first video is going to cover models, how to rip them, how to rig them, and then how to export them into Blender. The second video, which is going to be the one after this one, will be covering audio and going into depth on how to change audio in a League skin and how to effectively, do that. And then the third and final video will be covering particles and then, modding it all together, putting it all back into one, final package that can then be used by other people or even yourself. So if you guys like the video, or if you want more videos like this, or if you have any questions or tips, comment, let me know what you like, what you don't like. I'll try to go more into depth on stuff that you guys have questions about. But for the first video, ripping and rigging, let's get straight into it. We're going to need 3 softwares in order to do this. We're going to need BlueStacks, it's a mobile device emulator. We're going to need Ninja Ripper, it's our actual ripping program. And then we're going to need Cheat Engine, which is just like a memory, altering, code changing application that enables us to fuck with the game's memory a little bit. I'm going to be leaving links for all these in the description. Please don't pirate the Ninja Ripper. I know it's very tempting, but think about it. Would you rather pay $5 for a really well-developed software and its plugin, or would you chance malware and then having to wipe your $200 solid-state drive? It's an easy pick in my opinion. And if you do try to pirate it, all I say is do it with care. I understand pirating is a very gray area. It's not necessarily bad, but just do it with care, okay? Please keep it on your PC. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our BlueStacks. After installing Wild Rift, you're just going to click on this little settings icon. Make sure that you go to graphics and that you have the DirectX graphics renderer set. You're going to want to save your changes, and then you just want to close out BlueStacks, all right? After that, you're going to want to go ahead and open up your Ninja Ripper in administrator mode by right-clicking it and then opening as administrator. If you did that, it'll say administrator here at the top. Set your executable program to the directory for your installation of BlueStacks. And then after that, you're also going to want to set an output directory for the models. This will just be where your ripped models go. Pick somewhere that's well organized. Do this early on so you can keep track of all your models and not get them mixed up. I promise you it's worth it. Okay, then after you have all that done, you're going to want to click this little blue launch button. It should automatically start your BlueStacks application injected with Ninja Ripper. I already did this, so I'm just going to pop mine back open. Oh, it's not that one. There we go. And then after this, we're going to want to open up one more application, and that is Cheat Engine. Now, it's worth noting if you try to open Cheat Engine while you have other games that have decent anti-cheat installed, it's going to create some issues. Like if you try to open League while this is open, it won't work. Fortnite, just any games that have anti-cheat, avoid doing it because it might also harm your account, but don't quote me on that. I wouldn't risk it. Now, it is worth noting until you close out the application, you will be getting these error pop-ups with BlueStacks. That is perfectly fine. Just ignore it, drag it off screen, and if you get the DBK error, just click OK like 4 times, and then there we go. Our Cheat Engine should start just like that. Now that we have all of our softwares open and running, we are going to take BlueStacks, we are going to open Wild Rift, and in the meantime, we are going to click on this little computer icon in the top left of Cheat Engine. This is our process list. We're going to go to Processes, we're going to scroll up from the bottom, and then right here, we're going to select the hdplayer.exe for BlueStacks and click Open. Now, like I said, I am most familiar with BlueStacks. I don't know other emulators. I don't know what the option would be on just any other mobile emulator. I haven't really experimented with them, so please use BlueStacks for this tutorial. Now we're going to go ahead and start up our Wild Rift. Let's go to the shop and search for whatever champion we want to rip. For the purposes of this tutorial, I will be ripping one of Nasus's skins because he is my favorite champion. I love that champion so much. He and Lee Sin. I already ripped the Dream Raider Nasus model earlier, so I don't want to pick that one and do it again. I think that'd be a bad example for this tutorial. Let's go ahead and rip Space Groove Nasus for the purpose of this tutorial. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to figure out what number skin it is. Now typically the way League orders their skins is the first skin will be skin 1 or skin 0, and then we're just going to count up from that. So let's assume this is skin 0. This is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now when I ripped out Dream Raider Nasus earlier, I found out for some reason they had a nickname 5, so let's just go ahead and assume that this skin, Grooves Nasus, is skin 6. So what we're going to do with this information is we're going to go into our cheat engine, we're going to change the value type to string. This allows us to search for text. We're going to turn off case sensitivity, we're going to want to enable the unrandomizer, and now this next part's very important. You're going to want to type in your champion name, underdash, the skin number. In this case it would be skin 6, but you want to put a 0 beforehand, so 06, underdash G, and then underdash idle. The goal of this is we're going to search for the champion's animation. Now another thing is I don't recommend being on the skin you want to rip while you're ripping it, so let's go over to Nova Nasus, and then we're going to do our first skin. So this is just scanning for the code for the animation, and our goal here is to try to fuck with the game's code in such a way that it can't really operate anymore, and since it can't operate the animation anymore, it's going to default them to an A or to a T pose. Our first search returned nothing, so let's go ahead and search for skin 5. Skin 5 did return some addresses, but I do believe this is Dream Raider Nasus. It's worth mentioning that sometimes this takes a lot of patience and a lot of searching to get to the skin number you want, because League isn't always exact about naming their skins the right numbers. Like sometimes the third skin will be named skin 6, or the second skin will be named skin 1. It's weird. Just take some time and be very patient. But this is the method that you typically want to do, is champion name underscore skin number underscore G underscore idle. Okay, so let's go ahead and assume that skin 5 is the right skin. We're going to right click it. We're going to browse this memory region, and you're going to look for a very specific type of text. Now, I'm not going to go too in depth about this but just to break it down for you, you don't want to mess with anything that says byte or pre-byte, and you don't want to mess with anything that says prefab. If you see those two, leave them alone. They will crash your game. Now, typically we want to look for a line of text that says something like Nasus skin idle 10 pre, but if it's like all garbled, typically you don't want to use that, but this one is rather clean, so we're going to use this one. And we're going to click on it. We're just going to drop it down. We're going to check the second one as well. Browse this memory region. Pretty clean. We're going to drop this one down as well. Now we're going to take both of these, shift click them so we use them both at the same time, or control click. We're going to double click on these, and then we're just going to name it some random junk. The point of it is just to change it enough to where the game can't recognize it. Then we're going to click on both of these to make the code active. And then if we think that this was the right skin number, we're just going to tab back over to the skin that we were trying to mess with. And nope, that was not the right skin, unfortunately. Like I said, I'm pretty sure skin 5 was Dream Raider Nasus, so it's safe to assume that we just re-T-post this model since I open and close the game. Okay, so it wasn't skin 5, so next we're going to want to try to search around that. Maybe try skin 4, skin 6, stuff like that. I already tried skin 6, so let's try skin 7. And how strange is that? We searched skin 6, no returns, but skin 7 does return some addresses. Like I said, League is very, very weird. Although I'm willing to bet this will probably be Nova Nasus, but if not, this could be what we're looking for. Let's browse this memory region. This one's a little bit garbled, but just to be safe, I'm going to drop it down. Let's check this one. This one's perfect. That one is most likely it. And this one is also perfect. That could also probably be it. Let's go ahead and delete these nonsensical ones. Let's take these two, click them. It's also worth noting that the garbled ones will usually be a non-lasting line that gets changed every so often. That's why I typically don't use them. But once again, if you want to use them just for peace of mind, you can go for it. It doesn't really hurt, as long as it's not a pre-byte or a prefab. I just like to do it to be safe. I'm weird like that. Let's make sure both of these are active. Let's tab back out. Let's go over to the skin. And nope, that was not it. But was that Nova Nasus? Nope, it was not. Not quite sure what that is, but it was not what we were looking for. Let's just keep searching. Like I said, it's just trial and error. And make sure every time that you go to do a scan, you're clicking new scan or first scan, not next scan. This one returned a lot of values. Let's just check these one by one. This one is very clean. This is probably what we're looking for. Also very clean, probably what we're looking for. Not very clean, probably not going to work. Very clean, probably what we're looking for. Let's check this one out. Probably not what we're looking for. But it does not hurt to be safe or sorry. Shift click all these. Change the numbers to something random. And now let's go ahead and tab back to the skins. And that was Nova Nasus. So see how weird that is? We changed skin 7 and skin 6. Didn't get anything. We changed skin 8. It was Nova Nasus. But oh well, what you gonna do? Now this is one of the skins that I had intentions to rip in the future, so it's worth noting that if you find a skin you know you might want to rip in the future, it's still worth ripping it. So for the sake of this tutorial, we're just going to go with this one since I wanted to rip this one anyway. It wasn't my intention, but it is what it is. So we're just going to click insert. And if you launch with Ninja Ripper, it should freeze your game. This is exactly what we wanted to do. This means we are capturing the meshes and the textures in game. It should freeze for about 8 to 10 seconds. There we go, it's done. And then if we navigate to the directories folder, which for me it was ripped models, and then we go to the latest folder, which should say HD player and then have like the timestamp of when you ripped it, we will see our new frame in here. Now these are all frames that I ripped earlier. These two were from previous tutorials I tried to do where I forgot to record my audio. I'm so dumb. And then these are just from when I was ripping earlier. It should be the latest one that you ripped. And there we go. We have successfully ripped our model. Now, it's worth noting that you're going to need to install the Ninja Ripper plugin included with the Ninja Ripper application in order to use these files. But there you go. That's step 1 done. You have successfully ripped your Ninja Ripper model. Now we're going to import this into Blender and rig it. And then, yeah, let's get right into it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up Blender. We're going to delete the collection of like everything not necessary. And now we're going to click File. And if you installed the plugin, we're going to import, click on Ninja Ripper. We're going to navigate to the directory for the model, which in this case would be in my ripped models folder, and it would be underneath the latest folder, which would be at the bottom. Frame 42. And then you're going to click on the first file, scroll down to the bottom. Hold shift, click on the bottom file, and it will automatically select everything. You're also going to want to change the matrix, otherwise your files are going to warp. I will leave a description of what the matrix should be in the description, but excuse me. I'm going to just copy paste my matrix shit. Give me 1 second. I have it in a self-chat. You're going to want to import these all. Give it a second, it should stutter for a minute. And there we go. Let's just zoom in and... perfect. Now it's worth noting that it's going to rip a bunch of other meshes that you don't need. That's perfectly fine. Just delete anything you don't need. Also, if your champion has a lot of particle effects, they will be appearing on that mesh as well. You're going to have to go ahead and delete those as well. Particles are their own thing that we can talk about later, but for the sake of this video, we're just rigging the base mesh and its models. Delete everything you don't need. And there we go. We have our models. Oh, my dog's back in here. Hi, buddy. Anyway, just rotate our models. You can do this pretty easily by just clicking R and then clicking on the orientation that you want to view it from. Let's get these perfect. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. You can just click A, R, and it'll rotate pretty easily. And then click G, and then click middle mouse wheel to select a specific orientation of how you want to move it. And perfect. We have successfully imported our model. You can delete all the other meshes and groups that aren't necessary. This is a pretty good start to our model so far. Oh wait, there's some more meshes down there. Let me delete those. Those are unnecessary. Perfect. It's actually still not 100% perfect. There we go. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. And then one more thing we're going to do is click A, click Object, Apply, Transforms. This is just going to center everything directly on the center point of the world, which helps for rotating them later. And then click all transforms. There we go. So now if we want to rotate something like this, it's a lot less wonky. Just trust me, that makes your life way easier. And now that we have successfully done this, we are going to apply our textures and our UV maps, because if you go into the viewport editor, you'll notice that nothing looks quite right. Don't worry, you didn't do anything wrong, and you don't have to restart. This is perfectly normal. So when you import the files for both the textures and the UV maps, they get all jumbled up, but they are still there. So if we go to our data editor and then we go to our UV maps, you'll see that you still have all of your UV maps. It's worth noting that for every file I've ever worked with, the default is 0, but you should always select 1. It's always 1, trust me on that. But anyway, let's work on the next part, which is fixing up and cleaning our model by putting on the right textures. In order to do that, you're going to want to open a new workspace. You're going to want to open up a shader editor, zoom in, and then if you click on this little folder icon, you should be able to change the texture. It's going to open up the texture files, and then you're going to want to look for the appropriate texture. Because we're doing the model of Nasus's body, we're going to want to click on this one, and we already selected UV map 1 earlier, and boom, perfect. If you didn't select UV map 1, it would look something like this, but don't worry, all you have to do is select UV map 1. And that looks beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. That is a step in the right direction. You can go ahead and click on the other UV maps and then click this little -1 to get rid of them. You won't need them. And you're just going to want to repeat this process for all the meshes that are inside of your model. Now, as for his eyelids, select UV map 1. This is a very small part of the model, so I doubt I'll notice if I do this right or wrong, but I'd still like to try to do it 100% right. But I think it's actually already the right mesh. Yeah, it's black like his eyelids should be, if I'm not mistaken. Now we're just going to want to do his cane. Go ahead and click on this, UV map 1. Get rid of the old, I mean, just all the unnecessary ones, really. I didn't see all those others, my bad. That out of the way, let's go to his shader editor, find the texture for his cane, should be this one. Boom, perfect. That is beautifully done. Nothing's stretched, nothing's distorted, and this is a very well done rip. This is at the point to where I would probably offer up the file to other people who want to work with it on their own, maybe rig it on their own, like my friend Nightingale. But this is only just halfway through the process of this video. Now we're going to work on the hardest and most annoying part, rigging. Now, I will admit, I am not that good of a rigger. I am not that experienced at rigging. I am not that good at working with rigs. Okay, but that aside, oh, sorry, my eyes are itchy. Woo! Okay. So the next step is rigging. And basically what that means is we're going to take this mesh and we're going to put a skeleton inside of it. And depending on which NASA skin you're going to be rigging or modding, I should say. Like, for example, I want to put this on base NASA so people can use it for free. You would just want to grab the base NASA skeleton and use it. And in order to do that, we're going to need to use a nifty little application called lol2gf. So in order to do that, the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to download the directory for NASA's WAD client files. In order to do that, you're going to want to go ahead and open up Obsidian, which is this nifty little application here. I already ran it. And then you're going to want to go through the, you're going to want to go to your directory, go to your game files, drop down your data files, drop down your final, drop down your champions. And then after all that, you're just going to filter for the champion name that you want. For us, I want to do Nasus. Just do Nasus, search, and then it should highlight in red. And then you're going to want to click on the one that says nasus.wad.client. You don't want to extract the one that is for the ES one. No, don't do that. Just extract the one that says .wad.client. And then once you've fully extracted those files to a location on your desktop, which for the sake of this tutorial, I already did it because it's kind of a lengthy process. You're going to want to go to your assets folder, go to your assets, go to your characters folder, go to your champions folder, go to the skins, and then once again, depending on the skin that you want to mod, you're going to want to go to that specific skin. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm doing base. You might want to do a legendary. You'll just need to locate which folder that is. Like for Nasus, for example, it's his skin 5. This is his legendary, it's Infernal Nasus. But depending on which skin you want, you're going to need to navigate to that specific folder. For the sake of this tutorial, we're just going to do base Nasus. And then this is where you will have all the files that you need to change in order to mod the skin located. We're going to be visiting this folder a lot, so keep this in a safe place where you can easily navigate to it. This is where we're going to be changing the audio files, the textures, everything. For the sake of this video, we just need to worry about the SKLSKN, and then the DDS files for his textures. We're going to want to take these two files, we're going to want to copy them, we're going to want to paste them to our desktop. But anyway, now that you have located these two files, we are going to want to open the lol2gf program. This is a program that is capable of converting this SKLN and SKN file to a GLTF file, because as you will notice, these are not currently compatible with Blender, but that's okay. All we want to do is select simple skin, and then navigate to the directory for the files, click on the skin file, click on the skeleton, navigate to the skeleton directory, open it up, and then scroll down to the bottom and export to GLTF. And I'll just export it to my desktop and just name it something random like Bones Malones. Save. Give it a second. There we go. Converted to GLTF. It should pop up on our desktop here in just a second. And there we go. Perfect. Now we're going to want to open Blender back up. We're going to want to click File, Import, GLTF, go to Desktop. And I love this about Blender. You can just search for the name of the file. You can't do that with like any other program I work with. I love it. And perfect. We have base Nasus along with his axe and along with his skin. So let's just take these, scale them up. Oh wait, bad. I just meant to take these meshes. Wait, hold on. Shift, and I can't forget about his eyebrow mesh. If I do, I'll regret it. There we go. Let's scale these up to roughly the same size. Like this, get the ears about the same height. Now let's do this. Let's rotate. And then we can just go to trackball to make it much more clean. Do 0% rotation, do a 180. And boom, easy as that. It's worth noting that it might be a little bit ahead of it, so we might want to just like move these back a little bit. But this should be fine. Actually, no, wait. No, it's not. Let's do a little bit further back. Want the hands and the axe to be as close as possible. It just makes rigging it easier. Then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to click on the mesh for base Nasus. Click on the armature. Click Alt-P. Clear parent and create transformation. Then we're going to want to delete the mesh for base Nasus. Boom. Now we just have his skeleton along with our Nova Nasus here. This is perfect. This is exactly what we want. And now the next and most important part is we want to rig these bones to this skin as accurately as possible. Now that is a whole process in and of itself, and I'm not that well educated on it. I'll admit it's a skill thing, to be honest. You have to practice it for a long time, but I'm still going to try it either way. However, there are two things I want to mention at the offset here so you don't forget. These are two very important things. Keep these in mind. Before you go to import this into your WAD client file down the line, you are going to need to change the UV maps to match the UV maps in the champion folder. And what I mean is if we navigate over to our champion's base folder, you'll notice that if we click on one of his DDS files and pause it, you'll notice that his weapons, his arms, his face, they're all on the same file. But if we navigate over to this one and we go over to the UV map editor and then click on just his weapon, for example, you'll notice that it's on its own UV map. And if we do the same for his body, for example, you'll notice it's on its own UV map. Now, this is a process in of itself, but we need to combine all of the UV maps and all of the textures into one. And I think we're going to start on that part now. Let's call this step 2.5 or 2.2 quarters, 3 4 quarters, platform 3 9 quarters. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. This is a very important step that we cannot gloss over. You need to do this. So I think the easiest way to do this would first be is we want to create our new texture map to map our UVs to, because the way that a UV map works is basically it makes a 2D version of your model's mesh and then tries to map that to a DDS file. But if our DDS files are all separate files and we try to import it, it's not going to work because we need one Nasus DDS file. But this is fine. I'm going to walk you through how to do this. This is a very important step, and I don't see any tutorials out there. So please follow along with me for this next step. It is crucial. You cannot skip over this. First, we're going to want to go ahead and open paint.net. There is a link for downloading this in the description. We're going to want to open a new instance. These are old instances that I'm still currently working on. Just ignore them. We're going to want to go to our... And then after we do this, we're just going to want to navigate to the ripped folder for our rips, because this is where we will find all the textures that we need to work with. And also, we are going to want to open a copy of Paint with our replacement textures. We're going to want to open this. And now there is something really important we need to do. We need to take note of the dimensions of this file. We need to match this as accurately as possible. So see how it says 1024 by 1024? If we're going to be replacing this, we need to replace it with a 1024 by 1024. But keep in mind that we are going to be combining multiple UV maps into one box. So just let me cook for a second. We are actually going to take this and we're going to resize it to a let's do a 2048 by 2048. We're going to double the resolution to a 2048 by 2048. Just let me cook. We're going to create a new file. We're going to change this to 2048 by 2048 pixels. Don't mess with the resolution or anything else. It's fine. Okay. Perfect. And now what we are going to do is we are going to drop our textures into here. Where did we put those textures? Give me just a second. Should be in my... no, it will be in my ripped models because I haven't moved it yet. This is why organization is important, kids. Let's go to our latest folder. This should be the rips for our DDS files. Let's view them as large. And then let's locate the textures. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to take out all the textures that are important to us. Like, for example, Massus's body. Add layer. Perfect. And as you can see, it's going to take up precisely a quarter of the quadrant, which is exactly what we wanted to do. This is why I made it as a 2048 by 2048, because since this is a 1024 by 1024, it will have half the height and half the width, meaning we can fit 4 of these in there, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. We will import the texture for his body. Add layer. We're going to move this down. No, wait. I can't do G. Wait, hold on. It's not G. I keep forgetting. These are different controls. Add layer. And then we're going to move it down. Now, the really important thing is you need to get these pixels as accurate as possible. They cannot even be 1 pixel off. When you line these up next to each other, they have to be 100% accurate. There. Perfect. That lets us get it down to the pixel. If you're wondering what the control I did was, it's just control scroll wheel in and out. And then just dragging this around will let you move it. Perfect. Now we just need to get the texture in for his eyelashes. I can't remember what texture number that was, but that is perfectly okay. We're just going to go back into Blender. We're going to click on the mesh for his eyelashes. We're going to click tab twice to view its UV map. Let's go to shader editor. Let's see what the texture for his is. And by default, it is texture 30. Which is this texture, which is black and white, which makes sense. So let's go ahead and go to this folder, navigate to texture 30. Let's go ahead and implement that. Oh no, I did not mean to open. I meant to add layer. That is my bad. Now, there are 2 ways we could go about this. We could try stretching it out to match the dimensions of this bottom quadrant and do the same with a UV map, or we could leave it as the small size that it is. Personally, I'm kind of partial to just stretching it out. Just because, for one, I'm curious if that would work since this is still a learning process for me, but also for 2, because I think that'd be cool. And since it's a square, it should be fine with that anyway. So let's go ahead and do that actually. Once again, I cannot stress this enough. Make sure you get the pixels exactly on the dot. And there we go. We have created our new texture map for our UVs. This is perfect. This is just half of the step, but I'm sorry that this tutorial is kind of all over the place, but I promise you this will all be worth it when you get to see that skin working in game. So now that we have our new texture map, we're going to want to save this to our desktop or wherever. There we go. Sorry, I was looking for DDS. We will need to name this nasus.dds down the line, but for now, just name it something that you will remember it. Actually, no, wait, bad idea. Name it to nasus.dds now. Just. Okay, now that we have that done, we're going to name it to nasus.dds, put it somewhere where you won't forget it, and just make sure that you save it as a DDS. It needs to be saved as DDS. That is incredibly important. Just click OK. Oh, this looks beautiful. Flatten. Minimize that. Minimize this. And now we have our new texture map for the Nova Nasus file, which is perfect. This is exactly what we want. And now that is done, we're going to want to navigate to our models folder, go to the frame folder, and then we're going to want to copy our new map. We're going to want to Control-C, then Control-V, put it into here. There it is, nasus.dds. And then open Blender back up. You're going to want to navigate to this, and you're going to want to change all of them to use the new nasus.dds folder. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't going to match at first because the UV maps are going to be wrong, but that's okay. We're going to fix that in just a second. Let's do this one. Now, when you swap all these over, you'll notice, oh wow, now the UV map doesn't match up anymore. But that's perfectly fine because now we can actually go into UV editor. We can swap the UV map, or not necessarily swap, but we can edit it to match up with the new models now. You're going to want to click tab, and now you'll notice that all of our UV models are going to try to expand out the entirety of this. So in order to fix that, you're going to click A to select all the vertices, and then you're going to want to scale them up or down. But you're going to want to click on resize here and make sure you get it to a specific dimension. Specifically, nickname everything to, not nickname, change everything to 0.5, including the height. It's very important that you do them all to 0.5. Now, if we do G, we can move these up or down. And I believe the top left was the skin. Should have been. And if you want to be 100% accurate with moving all these, you can also do 0.25 as well. But somehow, like a god, I did 0.25 on the first try. Don't know how I pulled that one off. Good job, Benny. It's also worth noting that you might need to do negative 0.25 depending on what quadrant you're in. If you learned about quadrants in high school, God knows I didn't. That will correlate. We're going to do the same for the other meshes. No, hold on. Click tab. Now click on this. Let's do the scythe next. Click tab, click A. There we go. Tab back into our UV editor, click A. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to scale it down to 0.5. Exactly on the dot. Do not let a single pixel be wrong. And now with all that done, we're going to move it directly over to the bottom left. Change all these to 0.25, but if it's a negative, make sure it stays a negative. And since these are both in the bottom left, they should both be negatives. No, I did negative 25 instead of negative 0.25. That's my bad. There we go. This UV map also turned out perfectly. You might have to do a little minor adjustment by hand like I did there, but usually 0.25 in either direction should work just fine. Just make sure you get the pixels to line up as accurately as possible. And then we're going to do the same thing for his eyelash as the last layer. Obviously, the most important layer. Eyebrows on fleek. And there we go. And there we go. Our monocle, I'm so dumb. Anyway, there we go. Our model, its UVs, all of them have been updated so that way they now fall in line with league standard. This is a very important step that I don't see enough people cover often, and I'm so sorry that it was so all over the place. I do have ADHD, I talk a lot, but there you go. So basically what this was we just updated our UV maps on our models in order to match with the format that League's going to be using, because while our models can reference separate UV maps, League's files cannot. They need to reference one UV map, or in this case, one texture mapping for the UVs on the mesh. So now that all of this is in place, we're going to move on to the next step. I'm sorry, I just had to cover this first. It's a very important step. But our next step is going to be rigging the model. Now, I'm not going to lie. I am not very good at rigging models, but I'm going to try my best to walk you through it. Now, for the purpose of saving time and showing you an example that I have already managed to get working, because honestly, this is a lot of time and effort, I'm going to start referencing my Ascended Dream Raider Nasus model, because I'm not going to lie, I could rig and model this all for you right now, but this is a process that would take me hours, whereas an experienced rigger, it may only take them an hour. I am very new to this, but I will still run you through all the proper steps, so please bear with me. Okay, now we're going to take a look at my Ascended Dream Raider Nasus model for the next and one of the most important steps, which is rigging. Rigging is the process of placing all the bones from your armature into the proper place inside of your model. Now, first we need to talk about where you get the skeleton from, because as you will notice with my Nova Nasus model we just came from, we don't start with a skeleton in here, we just start with the model. Think of the model like a plastic toy, but it has no bendable parts. It's not like an action figure yet. In order to do that, we need to put a skeleton into it. And in order to do that, first we need to figure out which skin do we want to mod. Are we modding base? Are we modding one of his infernal? Or in this case, I should say legendaries, which for him would be infernal. Just which one are we modding? For the purpose of this, let's assume that we're modding his base skin, which means we need his base SKN and SKL files. Well, thankfully, that WAD/client file that we downloaded earlier is exactly where those are going to be located. So let's go ahead and navigate to our WAD folder for base Nasus. And over here, we'll find the SKLN and the SKN files. In order to use these, though, inside of Blender, they need to be in a format that's compatible. In order to do that, we just need to pop open lol2gf. We're going to go ahead and run the program. Perfect. And now we're going to select a simple skeleton, nasus.skn, and then select a proper skin. You okay, Duke? You need something? I think my dog needs to go to the bathroom, so I'm going to go let him out real quick. A BRB. Sorry about that, got a little off topic. I just fed and watered my dog, and I also played with him for a little bit. Okay, but now let's assume that we are on the next step, which is we are attempting to rig our skeleton to our mesh. First, we need to get a skeleton. Now, like I said earlier, this depends on which version or which skin we're trying to mod for our character. It could be like their Infernal Nasus skin, or like his base skin, his Galactic skin. For the purpose of this video, let's assume that we're doing base Nasus' skin. So in order to do that, first we need to locate the directory for base Nasus, which we should have downloaded the assets earlier from Obsidian, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go to assets, go to characters. It will have some other ones in here along with your character, which is weird, but let's go to Nasus, skins, based. And then here we will find not only our SKLN and our SKN files, but also all the other files that we will be editing if we wish to mod this skin. This is where we can change the load-in screen, we can change our animations, our particles, and heck, here's our textures, one of the most important things. Now, this is why I stressed so heavily earlier that we needed to remap the UV maps with new texture maps, because if we click on this, you will find that Nasus's model, incorporates all of his body parts onto one texture. This includes like his stomach, his face, his weapon, all of it. So we needed to do the same with ours, because even though there's 3 separate files here, these are just different resolutions. You can't have multiple texture files inside of the base skin unless you're working with a legendary that incorporates that, but you would need to follow the legendaries rules at that point as well. Anyway, what we're just going to do is we're going to take our SKN and SKL file. We're going to convert these into a GLTF file. So we're going to select our simple skin. We're going to select our simple skeleton. We're going to convert this to a GLTF. We'll name it whatever. Let's just, for the sake of this tutorial, name it Bones. Alright, I did Bones Malone's. Let's just do it a tutorial 2. Convert it to a GLTF. right there, tutorial 2. And now that we have our tutorial file, what we're going to do is we're going to open Blender back up. We're going to import it. We're going to import a GLTF. We're going to go to Desktop, right here. We're going to go to our folder, import it, boom. There's our mesh. Now, all we would have to do to get the skeleton out of this mesh is just, let me go over to it. We would just need to click on the mesh, then click on the skeleton by clicking on one of these bones, and then click Control P, or no, my bad, Alt P, clear and keep parent transformation. And now we can remove the mesh, delete it, and we have our skeleton. That's how far I got with this model. And then next comes the most important part. We need to actually rig it to this model. So that means we just have to move and resize all of the bones to be properly positioned. Like, for example, look at his hands. I bent them to match the fingertips versus this one, which is just, you know, standard T-pose. So yeah, just do your best to match like his scythe bones up and match his leg bones, match his cloth bones if they're applicable, and if not, just leave them be. Once all of that is done, then we can do the next step, which is we can weight these bones to the mesh. What weighting does is it just assigns a value for each bone to a specific part of the mesh, saying, hey, I control this much of the mesh, and then this one says, okay, I control this much of the mesh. There's multiple ways to do this. You can paint it by hand, you can try doing it automatic, but if you try to do it automatic, let me show you what happens. You click on the mesh, and then you click on the body, and then you click Control P, and then you click with automatic weights. You will get a bone heat weighting error. Now, I'm not entirely sure why this happens, but I know a way to fix it is by reducing the amount of vertices on the body. But let me go ahead and save you the trouble by saying if you try to do automatic weights, it's not going to turn out right. And I can show you what that looks like here if you don't, if you want an example of what it looks like. So let me click Tab, select all the vertices, and then click A, right click. And then what we'll do in order to fix that error is we will go ahead and we will merge vertices by distance. Done. And now we're going to click this, shift click the model, Control P. No, we click on the model, then this armature, Control P with automatic weights. Then if we go into pose mode, you'll see that the bones don't turn quite right. And this is because during the automatic weighting process, it is not assigning the bones weights to the mesh properly. Now, like I said, I'm not that good of a rigger, so I'm not sure why this could be, but for all the meshes or models I've done so far, I've just hand painted them. And don't get me wrong, that is a very long and lengthy process, but an easy way to make that shorter is just by doing the X-axis mirror on a model like this, for example. Trust me, hand painting is a lengthy process, but it is also the most accurate way of doing it. And what I mean by painting is, so what we just did is we assigned automatic weight painting values to every bone on this body. So if we click object mode, then click on the mesh, and then shift click on the bones, and no, click on the bones and shift click on the mesh, and then we go to weight paint mode, you'll notice when we control click on a bone, they have values assigned that say, hey, I control this much of the body. But you'll notice they're not quite right. Like, oh, wait a minute, if this is the upper arm, I should be controlling the arm a lot and not the coat. And that is why when we try to turn it, the arm doesn't move a whole bunch, but the coat moves a whole lot. Just automatic weight assigning here doesn't seem to work out that well. And like I said, I'm not 100% sure why it's not working out 100% well, but this is why I usually leave the rigging to my friends. So let's assume that you're better at rigging than I am and you've finished this. Let's assume that you've painted it by hand, or let's just assume you gave it to a friend to rig. Let's assume that now you have a rigged model and it's fully ready to be turned into a mod. Where do we go from here? This isn't an SKN or SKL file. It's no longer compatible with our engine, with League. Well, here's what we're going to do. Sorry, I just coughed a little bit. Anyway, we are going to take this file. Well, first off, we're going to exit weight painting mode. We're going to delete everything that's unnecessary. And then we're going to go ahead and export this as a, export this as a GLTF. We're going to export it to wherever you'll remember it. I'm just going to do it to desktop, and I'm just going to name it tutorial 3. Now we should have our tutorial 3. Let me go ahead and move this over here. Now that we have our tutorial 3 file, we're going to open our folder for GLTF up. Now this next part's a bit complicated, so try to follow me on this one. GLTF's base application is not capable of reversing the process of conversion. However, it comes with an add-on that is, but it's not a proper application, it's just an executable program. So in order to interface with it, what we need to do is we need to open a command prompt. And then we are going to go ahead and type in the line of code that I show here on the screen, but it should look like something like directory command directory command directory. The first directory should be the path to your CLI exe file, which for me I would just do my directory, but you're going to want to do your own. Do your directory, then do the command I'm showing on screen, or I will also leave it copy pasted in the description. And you're going to want to do the directory of the file you're trying to change. And then lastly, you're going to name the last directory what you want the output file to be. Do not name it the file output path like desktop, because it's going to try to name it desktop. And it can't do that because you already have a desktop. Name it desktop and then slash what you want the name of the file to be. I'm going to go ahead and write mine off here to the side in a Discord chat. Then I'm going to copy paste it into the program so you can see what it looks like. I got it right here. I'm going to rename this real quick because this is off. It should be tutorial 3. And then since I already have a tutorial 1 on the desktop, let's just name this tutorial 4 or 41. That's fine. I don't care. But yeah, so it's going to be the directory of where your program file is, then this command, which is GLTF to SKN -G, and then it's going to be the directory of where your file is located that you're trying to change, and then it's going to be -M, and then the directory of where you want the output to be. And if you did this all correct, no problems. Click enter. Oh wait, click enter. And there you go. A new line should appear if you had no errors. And there we go. We should have 2 outputs here. Now, there are 2 common issues you'll run into when trying to run this program. For one, your directories will be named wrong. That is 99% of the problem. Or 2, another issue you may have had is in Blender, you didn't listen to me earlier when I said combine all the meshes down into one mesh. That's absolutely important. It will say, oh, cannot combine 3 meshes instead of 1, something along those lines. Just go back, combine your meshes into one mesh, export again, try it again. I promise you it will work. Those are the 2 most common issues. But assuming we have both of those done now, excuse me, we have our SKLN and our SKL file here. Now it's worth noting the SKN doesn't automatically name as an SKN, so you're going to need to manually name it .skn. Keep it the exact same name as your other file. And there we go. It should automatically change to an SKN file type if you hover over it. Yep, there we go, SKN, SKL. Now that we have both of these files, what we are going to do is we're going to open our base folder back up. We're going to take both of these and we're going to drop them in and replace these files. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I am going to drop them in, but we need to rename them first. These both need to be nicknamed to nasus.skl and skn. Rename. Oh wait, I already did it, both of them, I'm dumb. Then when we copy these, actually wait, let me copy these. Copy, and then let's just drop these in. Replace the files in the destination, and I'm going to copy these to the desktop. I'm just creating a backup of the base nasus, SKL, and SKN in case I want to back up, because I'm just weird like that. And then lastly, what we're going to do is we're going to replace the DDS file here with the DDS file that we made. And now that we have both of these imported, we're going to replace it with the DDS file we made. Now this is my Nova DDS file, and since I switched over to showing you my Dream Raider Ascended folder, we're going to do that one as well. Once again, for the sake of the tutorial. Now, it's worth noting that this isn't going to come out looking right, and that is perfectly acceptable. I know it's not going to. I'm just going to show you that we did the conversions right. It's worth noting when we put this in, it's going to be a good example of why you always properly weight paint. You're going to see something really funny. There we go. It took a minute, but I found the asset files. I was trying to find that matchup with the skeleton and the SKN of Ascended Dream Raider Nasus. It took me a little bit, but keep in mind, you're going to want to name these appropriately. I do have 2 stand-ins here, by the way, because I don't intend on lowering my resolution. I could create 2 lower resolutions of this right now. I'm kind of lazy, but anyway, you need to just have them named appropriately. Name them Nasus.dds, 4x.dds, and 2x.dds. I can cover in a later tutorial on how to lower the resolution, so that way they abide by the killer skin CS LOL standards. But for now, just for the sake of testing, just make 3 copies and then just name them differently. That's all you need to do. It's also worth noting, if you tweak this, this folder right over here, not folder, if you tweak this DDS file for Nasus, you can actually change the way his splash art looks. So for example, if I take this splash art I have and I put this in here and I just copy paste, replace the file in the destination, boom, it replaces it, and when we load up the game next, it should actually change the way it looks in game. So this is actually all you need to do. We've replaced the SKLN, the SKN, the loading screen. We've replaced all 3 of his textures and his UV maps. So now if we load in the game, this all should work. Now, it is worth noting, I want to say this before we go to load up and show you the in-game product, I am fully expecting it to be a jumbled mess, and you may be wondering, Vinny, why are you expecting it to be a failure? I didn't properly weight it yet. I didn't properly rig it yet. I have one of my friends currently doing this for me because I am still very new to that, but if you have the patience to rig or weight these yourself, it is 100% worth the effort, I promise you. Hi. So, I don't know why, but every time I've tried to boot up the game, it's crashed so far. I was able to get a screenshot of what it looked like when I booted it up. But yeah, this is why we properly weight our models before we go to throw them into game. Now, this is still an absolute success in my opinion, because as you can see, the appropriate parts of the body are being colored properly, meaning our UV maps did work as intended, which was all I really put effort into so far. Like I said, rigging is a very time-consuming process, and I'm simply not as good as some other riggers out there. It would take a lot of effort and time to do that, which I simply don't have today. I have a lot of content that I need to get out today, well, specifically this video, as well as some other rips for some friends of mine, so I will get around to rigging this later, but this was just a good intro and a tutorial to show you what we can do right and what we can do wrong. Let this be a lesson to properly weight your shit, and on top of that, let this also be a lesson on what it looks like when you properly UV map it, because even though it may not look at it, look at his cane. The gem on the bottom is properly purple, his hands are properly white, everything is the proper color, they're just not in the proper places, which is good because we know what the problem is, which means we can work on it. And this whole skinning thing is going to be a lot of trial and error, but if you keep at it and if you stay patient and you persevere, you'll get it done. There ain't much else to it. This is just the first video in a series of 3 videos. The second video is going to be covering audio. I think that is such a big task on its own that I will be making a whole video around it. And then after that, the third and final video will be covering textures for particles and effects. And then it will also be covering how to combine all of our pieces back into one. It will be combining the audio back into one. It will be combining the UV maps and textures, the models. It will be throwing everything big back into one WAD client, so that way we can use it all together at the end and then give it to other people if they also like it. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it, and I would also like to say I'm still very new to this and I'm learning along with you guys. So if there's anything you think I did wrong, or if there's anything you'd like to see in future videos, just let me know. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll try to have the second video out tomorrow, and that's about it. See ya.